The rain hammered against the windows of our little cottage in the Cotswolds, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. For 20 years, Ingrid and I had built a life here, a life I thought was as solid as the ancient stone walls surrounding us. I'm Alaric, a landscape architect, and until recently I considered myself a lucky man. I had a beautiful wife, a comfortable home, and a career I loved. But lately the beauty had faded, the comfort had turned to unease, and the love was what I was beginning to question. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Ingrid, a talented ceramic artist, began spending more and more time in her studio, a converted barn at the end of our garden. "Deadlines, darling," she'd say, her eyes flitting away from mine. "A big commission." I didn't doubt her. Ingrid was always driven and passionate about her work. But the late nights stretched into weeks, then months. Dinners were skipped, weekends were lost, and the warmth that had always radiated from her seemed to dim with each passing day. Then came the phone calls. Whispered conversations in the hallway, abruptly cut short when I entered the room. "Just a client," she'd murmur, her cheeks flushed. "Nothing important." I tried to brush it off, to chalk it up to the pressures of her work. But a seed of suspicion had been planted, and it began to sprout, its tendrils wrapping around my heart. One Tuesday, Ingrid told me she had to go to London for a meeting with a gallery owner. "I'll be back late," she said, giving me a quick peck on the cheek. "Don't wait up." As I watched her drive away, a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I tried to distract myself with work, poring over blueprints and plant catalogs. But my mind kept drifting back to Ingrid, to her evasive eyes and hushed phone calls. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to surprise her, to meet her for dinner in London after her meeting. I called the gallery she'd mentioned, only to be told that they had no record of any appointment with Ingrid that day. My heart lurched. A cold dread washed over me, stealing my breath. I spent the next hour pacing the cottage, my mind racing. Where was she? Who was she meeting? What was she hiding? Finally, I made a decision. I had to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I drove to London, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I had no idea where to start looking, but I knew I couldn't just sit at home and wait. I started with the places Ingrid frequented, her favorite cafes, art supply stores, and small galleries. But no one had seen her. As evening approached, I found myself near the South Bank, the Thames shimmering under the city lights. Desperate, I decided to check a small, independent gallery that Ingrid had admired for years. As I walked through the door, I saw her. She was standing across the room, talking animatedly to a man I'd never seen before. He was tall, with a shock of dark hair and piercing blue eyes. He was leaning in close to Ingrid, his hand resting lightly on her arm. And she was smiling, a radiant, genuine smile that I hadn't seen in months. I stood frozen in the doorway, my world tilting on its axis. I wanted to shout, to scream, to demand an explanation. But I couldn't move. I could only watch as Ingrid laughed, her eyes sparkling with a joy that had been absent from our marriage for so long. Then she leaned in and kissed him. A long, lingering kiss that stole my breath and shattered my heart into a million pieces. I turned and fled, stumbling out of the gallery and into the crowded street. Tears streamed down my face, blurring the lights of the city. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to get away, to escape the pain that was tearing me apart. I ended up in a small pub near Waterloo Station, nursing a pint of bitter and trying to make sense of what I had just seen. Ingrid, my wife, the woman I had loved for 20 years, was having an affair. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow, leaving me gasping for air. How could she do this to me? Had our marriage been a lie? Had all those years of love and laughter meant nothing? I spent the rest of the night wandering the streets of London, lost in a fog of grief and disbelief. I didn't go home. I couldn't face Ingrid, not yet. I needed time to process what had happened, to figure out what to do next. The next morning, I booked a room in a small hotel near Heathrow. I needed to think, to plan, to decide how to confront Ingrid and what to do with the wreckage of our marriage. I spent the day in my room, staring out the window at the endless stream of planes taking off and landing. Each one seemed to represent a different path, a different future. But which path was the right one for me? Finally, I made a decision. I couldn't stay in the marriage, not after what I had seen. The trust was broken, the love was gone. I deserved better. I deserved someone who would cherish me, who would be honest and faithful. I called Ingrid that evening. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold and detached. "I know about the affair." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Ingrid spoke, her voice trembling. "Alaric, I can explain." "There's nothing to explain," I said. I saw you kissing him. It was a mistake," she pleaded. "It didn't mean anything. Don't insult my intelligence," I said. "I'm filing for divorce." I hung up the phone, my hand shaking. It was done. The marriage was over. But the pain was still there, a dull ache in my chest that I knew would take a long time to heal. I returned to the cottage the next day to pack my belongings. Ingrid was there waiting for me. Her eyes were red and swollen, her face streaked with tears. "Please, Alaric," she begged. "Don't do this. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to make it up to you." I looked at her, at the woman I had loved for so long, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no love, just emptiness. "It's too late, Ingrid," I said. "You broke my heart. I can't forgive you." I packed my clothes, my books, my personal belongings. I took down the photographs of us together, the memories of our life together. I wanted to erase her from my life, to start over. As I was leaving, Ingrid stopped me at the door. "Who is she?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "What are you talking about?" I said. "There must be someone else," she said. "You wouldn't be leaving me if there wasn't another woman." I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "There's no one else, Ingrid," I said. "I'm leaving because I deserve better than you. I deserve someone who will be faithful to me, someone who will love me unconditionally." I walked out of the cottage, leaving Ingrid standing in the doorway, her face a mask of despair. I didn't look back. I moved into a small apartment in Bristol, a city I had always loved. I threw myself into my work, designing gardens and landscapes for clients who appreciated my talent and my passion. I started taking salsa lessons, something I had always wanted to do. I made new friends, people who were kind and supportive and who didn't judge me for what had happened. I began to heal. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but it gradually lessened. I started to feel like myself again, like the happy, confident man I had been before Ingrid's betrayal. One evening, a few months after the divorce was finalized, I received a phone call from a mutual friend, Bront. "Have you heard about Ingrid?" she asked, her voice hesitant. "No," I said. "I haven't spoken to her since I left. She's been dumped," Bront said. "The man she was having the affair with, Caius, he left her for someone else." I felt a twinge of satisfaction, a small, mean-spirited part of me that was glad to see Ingrid suffer. But then I felt something else, something unexpected. "Pity. She's all alone," Bront said. "She's lost her husband, her lover, and her reputation. Everyone knows what she did." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. "She's been trying to contact you," Bront said. "She wants to apologize, to ask for your forgiveness." "I'm not ready to talk to her," I said. "Maybe someday, but not now." A week later, I received a letter from Ingrid. It was a long, rambling letter filled with remorse and regret. She admitted that she had made a terrible mistake, that she had thrown away the best thing in her life. She begged me to forgive her, to give her another chance. I read the letter several times, but it didn't change anything. The trust was still broken, the love was still gone. I couldn't go back to Ingrid, not after what she had done. I wrote her a short, polite reply, wishing her well and telling her that I hoped she would find happiness someday. But I didn't offer her forgiveness. I wasn't ready to forgive her, and I didn't know if I ever would be. Life went on. I continued to work, to dance, to make new friends. I even started dating again. I met some wonderful women, but none of them could compare to Ingrid, to the woman I had thought she was. One day, I was walking through a park in Bristol when I saw her. She was sitting on a bench, alone, staring at the ground. She looked tired and worn, her face etched with sadness. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do. Then I walked over to her. "Ingrid," I said, my voice gentle. She looked up, her eyes widening in surprise. "Alaric," she said, her voice barely audible. I sat down beside her on the bench. We sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the children playing in the park. "I'm sorry," she said finally, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry for what I did. I ruined everything." Tears streamed down her face. I reached out and took her hand. "I know," I said. "But it's okay. I'm okay. You're okay." We sat there for a long time, holding hands and talking. We didn't talk about the affair or the divorce or the pain. We just talked about life, about the things that mattered. As I was leaving, Ingrid turned to me and said, "Thank you, Alaric. Thank you for everything." I smiled. "You're welcome, Ingrid," I said. "Take care of yourself." I walked away, feeling a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in a long time. I didn't forgive Ingrid, not completely, but I understood her. I understood that she was human, that she had made a mistake, and that she was paying the price for it. I knew that I would never be able to forget what had happened, but I also knew that I couldn't let it define me. I had to move on to build a new life for myself, a life filled with love and happiness and trust. And I knew that someday I would find that life. I just had to keep looking. Years later, I remarried. My new wife, Blythe, was everything Ingrid wasn't: honest, loyal, and completely devoted to me. We built a beautiful life together, filled with laughter and love. Ingrid, I heard through mutual acquaintances, eventually found happiness as well, remarrying and moving to France. Looking back, I don't regret what happened. The pain was immense, but it taught me valuable lessons about love, loss, and forgiveness. And it ultimately led me to a life that was even better than the one I had lost. The storm has passed, the rain has stopped, and the sun is shining once again. I am Alaric, and this is my story of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimately redemption.